Okay, so we have been talking about different free content ideas that is one to many, because that is the whole point of social media, right? You can create something once and it can go to thousands and millions of people. And so, with everything that I'm studying and kind of the holy grail that's really working well is the collaborations. And this is a one to many where maybe it's a collaboration that is an interview style, or maybe you're hosting a mastermind. Today's purpose is to go through kind of the keystrokes and steps of how you set one of these up. I personally use Zoom. The reason why I use Zoom is because I think it's the most universal. And so let's start with the weekly show idea. On your calendar blueprint, and every month you see that Wednesdays are designated for host your show day. So each month you should have a day identified. And I do have this in our 30,000 foot above view where there is a Monday on the month that's meant for you to be prospecting. The month before you want to have outreach. I do it through the DMs because it's easier that way for me. I've never been one that likes to call, but I say, hey, every week we host a show. I'd love to have you on. We're looking for other valuable business owners or members in the community that we could essentially just connect our audience to you or your service and help you become known. Because again, the goal is to make them the hero. You want to invite them. And guys, I've had people with thousands of followers. In fact, we have some epic ones coming up on the Win Now podcast, which is every Monday at noon Pacific Standard Time, PST. These are like big names. And all I did was DM them and say, hey, every week we host a show. I'd love to have you on. And it's the same rigmarole. And the only thing you need to be good at is how to be a good interviewer. I was not great. I'm still learning to get better at this because sometimes you can get in your head where you're trying to think of the next question or you're looking at your notes to remind yourself how to expand from here. And so all I can suggest is to follow the LOVE acronym. And L is listen, O for observe. So you want to make sure you're actively listening to them, make sure you're looking at them through the camera lens. Like I could be looking at myself on my screen right now, and I'm really bad at sometimes I'm looking at this monitor. But remember, you always want to make good eye contact. So you want to make sure that they know you're listening, you're looking at the lens, you observe what they're saying, then you validate it like, oh, that's a really good point. I have heard that, the divorce rate has been increasing this year. It could be because of inflation, blah, blah, blah. And then E is expand. You then expand off of what they say until you ask the next question. So all of the interviews are kind of similar where you may DM them, say you host it every Wednesday. Maybe it's every Wednesday at noon. Is there a slot that works best for you next month? You'll want to get their headshot and get a good title. And I always ask the guests, what is something that you feel passionate about talking about that you think you could talk about for about 45 minutes that would be valuable to our audience? And then this is the gold. You create a graphic that lets everybody know, hey, we're going live at this time. This is the title. This is our co-host. Show up, register via Zoom, and I'll walk you through the steps of how to create the Zoom. Register via Zoom, or you could even stream it live like you see Todd Bookspan and I do on Mondays, or even Dave Savage and we do on Fridays, where we go live through the Facebook group. Now, I will say, even with as large of group members that we have in those channels, so let's just say Mortgage Coach, for example, there's like 20,000 people in that group. We maybe only get like 20, 25 people live via the Zoom link. But we have positioned the consistency in the loan officers' minds that every Friday we do an interview that is valuable. And even if you can't show up live, where do we put it? We always take the recording, and we don't even edit the recording. Guys, it is the raw recording that we put into YouTube. And over time, that consistency, we have people that know that since it's in the YouTube channel, they will go and they will watch it year after year after year. Like I'm still getting clients that mention videos and interviews that we've done years ago because of the YouTube channel that they have found me and now they've become clients. So this strategy is like holy grail, but I know it's a little intimidating because it can be a little clunky. When you create that graphic, you're going to post it on your social media. You're going to tag the co-host. On Instagram, I would invite them as a collaborator. That way it shows on both of y'all's newsfeed. So there's a difference between just tagging someone and inviting them as a collaborator. Now they may need some coaching on how to then accept that collaboration, but you really want to both be on the newsfeed. You also want to share that post, like all posts. You should be sharing them to your story. And then you can use the link sticker where you can hyperlink the registration, or perhaps it's the replay. So the link on YouTube, where when people get lost in the story surfing, you make it as easy as possible to watch the video by just clicking the link straight from your story. Remember, everything with social is about removing the friction of things so that we're constantly enticing them. And usually the stories is like the top of the funnel to get them to the meat. You may have a reel that you have sliced from the interview that you shared to your story that then is a link to your YouTube channel where it shows the full interview. Create your graphic, you tag them. You also send that graphic to the co-host. So let's say the first Wednesday of every month, you're going to interview family law attorneys. That means you only need 12 family law attorneys. And maybe you have 6 that you interview twice. But we know that family law and divorce right now is where people are buying and selling, unfortunately. So make them here, ask them questions like, depending on if you're a community property state or not, you could ask them things like, what happens if there's a geographic restriction in the divorce decree? Because maybe they have children. And so usually you don't want people to move outside of the feeder zone of the school. But what if there's a decree, which a decree is like a contract where it says there's a geographic restriction, but this person got a job relocation? Like, what are the steps that have to take place? Because that's a legal binding contract stamped and signed by a judge that you, by law, have to follow. So these are things that you could talk about where the attorney is basically giving free attorney advice, which how many of your, clients that chose you to be their loan officer could benefit from this advice? And that is the paradigm shift that I'm really pushing on you all to have, because I see in most of the content that we create, because you guys have stated you want to create mortgage related content, and it should be mortgage related content, but that's only going to attract those who are raising their hand, showing interest in buying a home right now. What are we doing to create content that allows the person who trusted you last month to do their loan? Why should they keep following? Like, what on your content feed is going to build a community? It's worth a lot more than just followers. That, some of the followers don't turn into revenue. Like, they may not ever buy a loan from you because they're based out of India. So it does no good. So the goal has got to be, how do we create a community and an audience which is worth more than just followers? Well, one way is to leverage the weekly show idea where you don't have to know any of the intellectual property. Like, you don't have to be the one who knows it all. You just have to get really good at time blocking one day a month, which you will see on our 30,000 foot above view calendar that we send out at the start of every month. There's a Monday that says prospect for your co-host of your weekly show for the following week. Guys, that takes an hour to do, if that. I'm in the bathtub most nights and I'm DMing people. And let me tell you, we have on the Win Now podcast, which is every Monday at noon. In case you guys didn't know, I go on live with Todd Bookspan from the Win by Noon Productivity Mastermind Facebook group. So if you're not in that group, get in there. But we have Pace Moby, don't know how to pronounce his last name, who has hundreds and thousands of followers. He's a big time, he used to be a loan officer. He's now in the marketing space and like creative financing and investing. Guys, I just DM'd him and got him to book the show. And all my DM, it's always the same. It says, hey, every week we host a show. I'd love to have you on. We're always looking for high value, thought leaders or business owners in our space that could benefit our community. And they want to expand their awareness and their brand. And once you go live and once you have the video, which is again, usually 30, 45 minutes, that then becomes micro content that you can gift them, but you can also post in your own social media that's spread out. You don't want to have like a bunch of micro content from the same interview in the same month, but you're basically leveraging their following and their intellectual property to create content for you. Not to mention that graphic that you email them, letting them know, hey, send this to your entire database, let them know you're going live on this day at this time. For some, especially in family law, I used to run a family law firm. That's like the new TV. So they're like telling mom and dad to log in. And so you tag them to get on their social feed and try to get in front of their adopted following where they already have trust. You send them the image to also send to their entire database. You give them the Zoom link through a calendar Outlook. That way it's time blocked on their calendar so that they don't forget. And again, most people by now, thanks to COVID, know how to use Zoom. But when you set up your Zoom, in fact, I'm going to just share my screen so you can see the keystrokes of exactly how I do this. Okay, when you set up your Zoom, you're going to want to set up a new meeting, but you're going to schedule it. So say you know that it's going to be Wednesday at noon and it's a week from today. You would click schedule. And the biggest difference between meeting and webinar Webinar is where you would only see like the speaker view of the presenter and maybe the co-presenter, like the participant, but everybody else who's attending, you don't see their screen. So depending on if you want that or not, if you're going live and you're streaming it live through a Facebook group, which chances are most people who start to this way, they're just recording a meeting. They take the recording and then they're uploading it to YouTube, or they're taking that recording, they're uploading it to StreamYard.com where it can appear live, even though it's not. For simplicity purposes, let's start with just baby steps. We're going to start off with a meeting, and this is just going to be an interview with you and the co-host where there's nobody else on live, because I think that makes everybody a little bit more at ease until you have practice, and then we can upgrade from there. So you're going to go to schedule, and your next slide will look like this. It'll ask you to name the show. So whatever your weekly show is, or maybe you put the co-host name here. I call it Nerd and Bird Show because this is just the last one that I was on. You're going to put the start time, obviously, that it is, how long of a duration you're going to allow. I change a few things where I think by default, it always has video host on, participant on. And then if you keep scrolling down, it'll create an Outlook calendar. And I click advanced options and I just put allow participants to join at any time. That's the only other thing that I change under advanced options. So again, you're going to click schedule. We're scheduling a meeting. This is no different than you creating a Zoom link, maybe for a client when you do a buyer consult, and then you're going to click save. So from there, it's going to automatically pop up your Outlook calendar invite that we just created. Where it says required, I would go ahead and put the email address that your co-host has been emailing you back and forth or has said to use. Again, all of this will auto-populate. I love that it puts the Zoom link in the location, which again, just makes it really easy for someone to then join. But in case you're wondering what Zoom link do they use, well, it's the one that auto-generates from the Zoom meeting. So it's that simple. Okay, so schedule, create some of your settings, put the title, auto generates your Outlook invite, which then you're going to make sure you send to them. Next, once it's go day, okay, and you're going to open up your Zoom and it's going to say, do you want to start? So it'll look like this. So here was one that I had scheduled for today, which happens to be March 22nd. I would go in and hit the start button when I'm ready, probably log on about 10 minutes before. Couple settings that you're going to want to pay attention to. First, at the bottom here, if you're having issues with your microphone, or if they're having issues with their microphone or maybe their video, you see this microphone button and camera button. If you click the top arrow, it will give you other options, like maybe it's accidentally set in headphone mode, and so you can't hear for some reason, or they can't hear. It's usually within these buttons right here. Also, don't forget to hit the record button. I always record and I just save it to my computer. You can save it to your cloud or to your computer, but it's going to create an audio version like podcast style, and then also an MP4 video file that can then be uploaded to YouTube. Don't forget to hit record. And those of you who've done this and have made that error, you're like, oh, I forgot to hit it. I then, just because I always want to make sure that both screens are showing when we're doing the interview so that they can see both of us. If you click share screen, change the default to multiple participants. It's the second radio button right here. Multiple participants can share at the same time because they may want to share a screen. You may want to share a screen. So these are just, if you're going live and you're doing the interview and you can't figure out, like maybe they're saying they can't share their screen for some reason, this arrow here is where the green button, that's where you share your screen. But the white arrow to the top right, that is where you're looking at the settings. The only other thing that I typically change is in the upper right hand corner where it says view, I change it to gallery. That way, again, it shows both of us. Now, if we had several other people registered on this, like maybe you're hosting a monthly mastermind and you want everybody's cameras, like videos, to be shown, you would click gallery and it'll show all those little boxes. But I know it's just going to be me and the co-host for this one. Kind of some advanced things is if you click this more button, if you've connected your Facebook or YouTube or Twitch account, you can connect that through your Zoom settings. I'm sure there's an article within Zoom that I can link to this, but you could, like if you've seen on the Win by Noon or even Mortgage Coach, you'll hear us say, okay, are we live in the Facebook group? Well, how we do that is we click more and we choose Facebook so that we go live in the group and we're recording it via Zoom at the same time. The why behind that is because we always take that recording and we upload it to YouTube. So Let's back up a little bit. The holy grail with getting more reach and more following on social right now is by doing more collaborations where you're leveraging other people's following and other people's trust. The other benefit to this is you are creating consistency for those who have already chosen you to do business with, to have a reason to keep following you. Because otherwise, if it's only about doing mortgages or interest rates and maybe they bought when rates were 2.5%, you then just become noise and they may not follow you for that reason. So create a community and truly be that digital mayor in your area so that you are casting a wider net. Obviously, every interview you do, there's parts where you can intertwine mortgage or real estate, but get really good at prospecting. Who could you interview that's going to bring value to the community you serve? Guys, this could be family law, CPAs, financial advisors. It could be a championship team that just won at the local high school. Maybe you interview the coach or have a student athlete that you interview. It could be a contractor who is going live and explaining like how to prepare your flower beds for spring. What are some things that most people don't know? It could be a designer or a home stager that's talking about the design trends that are kind of going away and the new trends for 2023. It could be a real estate agent. It could be a new restaurant that's opening up, or it's, Margarita Day coming up or Cinco de Mayo. And so you want to interview the manager or maybe the lead chef of one of your favorite restaurants. This is what I mean by, after hearing this, I hope like your truth antenna goes up and you're now looking for opportunities of who could I interview? Like you could be at the airport and you hit it off with someone and you're like, hey, you know what? Every Wednesday I host a show. We're always looking for people just like you to be on it. It's super informal. It's via Zoom. I just ask you a few questions and really just highlight you to see if anyone that is in my community or in my following could benefit from the services that you provide. What's your schedule like next week on Wednesday? And you make it that simple, guys. It really is that simple. But the holy grail is then when you make the social post, letting everybody know this is coming, you tag them, you give that social post, you email it to them and you tell them, you have to tell people, email this to your entire database as well, so that they also know to go live and to benefit from, maybe not live, but even if you upload it to YouTube, let me know if you're interested for the copy, whatever. This is the how you execute the weekly show. I realized that some were getting stumped when it came to Zoom. I think on the settings, they couldn't figure out like why it was just showing one person. What was the difference between a webinar and a meeting? So all I can say is baby step it, take it slow, time block. In fact, I'm going to pull up our content calendar for this month and I'll show you the why behind my thought process on this. So behind Deb's crazy brain here. See, if we're looking at the calendar, this past Monday that we just had, guys, it says prospect/confirm for next month's co-host for the weekly show. I literally have this time blocked of this content counter, guys, is like perfect world, all things marketing, not just social media marketing. These are other things that I'm squeezing on you guys to do because I hear too many say, I want what Denise Donahue has, or I want what Dan Keller has, but are you willing to do what they've done to get there? And it's done through consistency. You can't just show up, stop, start, stop, start. It's doing the tough work. This is tough, okay? But it shows it's the third Monday of every month, just about, where you're prospecting or confirming your co-host for the following month. So if you look at these Mondays, these are the other aspects to like your marketing wheel that someone, maybe you have a marketing assistant on your team or that someone else could be doing beyond just what we're doing for social media. So the first Monday of the month is always the mail day. I like to get everything out the mail. If you're a mailer person, let's get all the stamps. Let's get that all done for the month. That includes things like the birthday cards. So any of your clients who have birthdays, annual asset reviews that you may be mailing out, monthly newsletters. The first Monday is always the mail day. The second Monday is your pop buys. By the way, when you're doing these pop buys, your truth antenna may be like, oh, this builder would be a good one to interview on my weekly show as I'm making my rounds. It's just your milk route of staying in front of those most critical relationships who may need help. Yes, we're still staying on top of them or in front of them digitally, but you've got to sprinkle in different mediums to this approach. The third Monday of the month is prepping for your quarterly events. And remember, these alternate. You're doing a quarterly event for your real estate partners or referral sources, and you're doing a quarterly event for your clients to still continue to show that love for them. Maybe it's renting out a movie theater. It could be doing a happy hour. It could be getting a hamburger man, like the hamburger truck, whatever it may be. There is a designated spot on the calendar. And this is where Mondays are your media days and then your other aspects of marketing for you to do. We've already talked about, this Monday, and then the last Monday of the month, I'm a big component of making sure you're showing love to your team as well. So reflecting over what's working, what's not working, who has value that they'd like to add or an opinion of where we could improve, talk about goals, tracking personal goals, things like that. So that is Monday. You'll notice the first Wednesday of every month is your Realtor Mastermind Day. Every month you should be hosting a mastermind that you do via Zoom as well as live. Why do you do it Zoom? Because some people don't want to get ready and drive all the way to your meeting. They want to be able to just attend via Zoom, or maybe they're busy at that time, but they could listen to it. So that's just once a month that you're doing. That's why this is on the calendar. The rest of the days is your host your show day. It's on your calendar to execute, which I hope all of you are printing this out. You have it in front of you in gray. It has those loan officer tasks that, these are the principles of making sure you're doing these activities every single day so you don't miss out on any aspect of your business. Remember, the letter here coincides with when you make your database calls, you're using this initial of the last name. So anyone in your database with the last name that starts with a J is who you're calling on this day. The next week it's K, the next week it's L, then M. And guys, this is on your weekly battle plan. You'll see I give you the month view, and then I break it down per week, including all of this. It's then up to you to execute it. So there's only so much we can do on social that is going to give lift, but there's things that you have to do from an offensive side of the strategy. So we're a good defense. We take this like as a game. You have offense and defense. Defense at least shows consistency, shows you're a professional. It gives warmth. And when they go to look for social proof, the lights are on in the building. But it also takes you proactively engaging with your audience. Or if you want 20 new followers a day, then you need to times 2 that activity and what you choose to do. So are you following 40 new accounts every day to hopefully get half of that in return? If you want more likes and comments on your post, are you giving out 2x that amount every day in order to receive in return? Because you got to lead by example, and that social engagement is huge. Also, hitting your audience in multiple different mediums is also important. So if you're really trying to grow and you're trying to build that personal brand, you got to do collaborations. I hope this was helpful. If you guys have more questions, you know where to find me. I hope to see you guys going live, or at least see your YouTube channels being built by hosting your own show. Y'all take care.